Finally, after offering a deal to end Republican dialogue over the Speaker vote, Kevin McCarthy got his dream job.
Representative Kevin McCarthy has now been elected Speaker of the House in the 118th Congress. This comes after 15 rounds of voting since Tuesday. This also the first time in more than a century that a nominee for Speaker failed in the first round of voting.
Although those 15 ballots would be an awkward brand on his journey as the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, at least they happened anyway. America's worst congressional dysfunction in over 160 years ended now. But people are interested in the real story behind Mr. McCarthy's struggle, the gradual fragmentation of American politics, the even more intense partisan tensions, the disputes within the party. Can this kind of American politics lead a U.S. society in need of healing out of the mess? I'm Sina. Welcome to Factstyle. First of all, let's review this political drama. McCarthy had such a hard time getting elected, precisely because two fractions in the Republican Party are more fundamentally divided than ever: the traditional conservatives and a new generation of hardliners. To seize the gavel, McCarthy compromised a lot to the hard-right holdouts. One key concession is restoring a rule that allows any single lawmaker to make a motion to vacate the chair. And that puts him at a serious disadvantage in shepherding bills through the House in the future. Being at the mercy of others will likely make him a weakened leader who will find it very difficult to move any major controversial initiatives forward. But this kind of factional fighting within the GOP didn't come out of the blue. The rise of the Tea Party movement during Obama's presidency allowed such splits to take root and grow. This party's far-right fraction has matured into a key voice in shaping the results. Some have called them Trump believers. Take McCarthy's failed third ballot as an example. There were 20 Republicans who voted against him. 12 of them rejected the 2020 election result, believing it was rigged or Trump actually won. And 17 of 20 got endorsements from Trump in the 2022 midterm election. However, the biggest overlap among these 20 Republicans, according to New York Times, isn't Trump, but 18 belong to one group, the House Freedom Caucus. According to The Economist, the Freedom Caucus membership was secret and invitation only, and it now has about 15 far-right Republicans in America's House of Representatives. They want a small government and believe in abortion bans and restrictions on immigration. These seem to be typical topics on the conservative agenda. But the Freedom Caucus is often at odds with the demands of most Republicans.
The Freedom Caucus, which I'm one of the original members of, has always been the opposition, mainly opposition of a liberal agenda. But now that we are in power, the Republicans, it continues to be the opposition party in the Republican Party.
What makes the Freedom Caucus the opposition party in the Republican Party can be found in the political ideology of its members. Pew Research Center finds that Freedom Caucus members are more conservative than other House Republicans. In this figure, the yellow vertical lines represent 36 confirmed Freedom Caucus members' ideological scores, and the red vertical lines represent all lot Republicans' ideological scores. And we can find that on the spectrum from the most liberal to the most conservative, the majority of Freedom Caucus members are further to the right than the majority of all lot Republicans, which indicates that the Freedom members are overall more ultra-conservative than other House Republicans. That's why Freedom Caucus members think McCarthy is not conservative enough and could easily compromise with Democrats. But part of the reason this group has been so ineffective in blocking McCarthy is that the Republican Party did not perform as well as they expected in the midterm. The red wave did not happen, and the Republican majority was so thin that the Freedom Caucus, a relatively small group, had a final say as to whether McCarthy could hold the gavel.
And yesterday, we had a deal that was not a selfish deal in any way for Kevin McCarthy to get him the gavel on the first ballot, and he eagerly dismissed us.
Using votes as leverage in 15 ballots, the House Freedom Caucus has been called Taliban by many critics for its destructive strategy in pursuing its goals. On the 15th ballot, McCarthy's concessions finally won him enough votes, but these concessions may cost him and the Republican Party a lot. According to The Economist, McCarthy promised to reduce spending to the level of 2022 fiscal year, to restore the motion to vacate rule we talked about before, and to install several Freedom Caucus members on the Rules Committee, which decides what bills are presented to the House, and to allow amendments to appropriations bills, and maybe other things that the public doesn't know at this moment.
What Speaker McCarthy did, without hesitation, was put some members of this farther right Freedom Caucus on key positions, or give them a sense they'll be on key committee spots, including the House Rules Committee, which touches every piece of legislation that goes on the U.S. House floor, giving them some outsized influence, even though this group is smaller in number. But the bottom line is, there has been this consternation about a 3-page addendum to the rules package, something that's circulating in some part of the U.S. House. Some Republican members say they want to see it. Some members of the public may want to see it, but it doesn't seem to exist in reality, or hasn't surfaced in reality, which raises the provocative question, what else has Speaker McCarthy promised that we don't know about yet?
Given these concessions, many worry that when the Freedom Caucus becomes so influential, not only would McCarthy's power as the Speaker be weakened, but the House political environment could never be the same.
That's a really important point because, again, giving all the things that he's giving away, not just at what cost, but what is that going to look like over the next couple of years? Yeah. If every day, every week, we are back here having to vote again, nothing is going to move. And, you know, the other thing I do want to say, this is exactly what the American people voted against. You have a handful of MAGA extremists, destructionists, I would call them, basically holding the United States House hostage over the things that they want, which are not the things that a majority of Americans voted for.
Yes, someone gets to the point. Americans voted for their representatives to get things done, yet they seem to be getting the opposite now. When the far right can increase its influence, legislation will likely drift to extremes and fail. Take this as an example. In McCarthy's first week, the Republican-led House passed 2 abortion-related measures. And in the future, no doubt more bills will be passed in the House to restrict abortion. However, Republicans and Democrats know these bills have no chance in the Democratic-controlled Senate. So these bills are just a show to the voters. We tried, and sadly, we failed. Period. And as more and more of the far right gain leverage through these political concessions, more bills need to be more extreme just to get through the House. But everyone knows the more conservative the bill, the harder it will be to get through the Democratic-controlled Senate. So here we are, almost at deadlock. Time, money, and people are invested, but at the same time, knowing a failure is doomed to come. Nothing gets done.
But I do question why certain members, special members, get special priorities on their bills. We need to learn from the midterm election cycle. We need to learn from those that are in swing districts like myself that there were a number of issues that were pressing. And again, abortion was the number 2 issue in my district. But every swing district had different issues. But where are the centrist voices? Where are those majority maker voices as part of this conversation?
And some might say, well, these other Republicans could work with some Democrats. But for Republicans, getting Democrats' help may be worse than not helping.
The House doesn't have to do a ton of stuff. It needs to pass a budget. We'll have to do the debt limit. It needs to pass appropriations bills. But those 3 things, if you couldn't wrangle these 5 to 10 people, then all of a sudden the Republicans are over begging Democrats for help. And by the way, the help won't come for free. You'll end up with Republicans having to give away goodness knows what to Hakeem Jeffries to get the votes to do the basic functionings of government, which no Republican voted for, I can assure you, anywhere in the country.
Today, both parties are becoming more polarized in both the House of Representatives and the Senate, with Democrats becoming more liberal and Republicans more conservative. That makes it less and less likely that the 2 parties will agree on something, unless one side makes big concessions. But which side will be willing to do so now that the race is so close? A concession would probably result in losing votes in the next presidential election. This may be another deadlock in American politics. Growing polarization makes bipartisanship impossible, and once again, little hope of getting anything done. McCarthy and the U.S. Congress will face a series of big tests about funding the government, whether to continue aid to Ukraine and raising the country's borrowing limit to avert an unprecedented federal default, etc. Let's hope we won't see more drama like this then. American society is indeed divided. But remember that these elite politicians are ultimately there to heal that divide, not to make it grow. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you like our show, remember to click like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. I'm Saina. Bye for now.